Combatons merge into Bruticus!
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Age of the Primes Deluxe Class Vortex. Based on the original G1 cartoon, Vortex is the first of 5 all-new Combaticons, which once combined will form the mighty Bruticus. And so, this does confirm that 2025 will be the Battle of the Combiners, as in addition to Vortex, the Constructicons and Aerial Bots are also set to conclude. But I've got to say, guys, that despite him being the only Combaticon so far released, it's a team that I already have incredibly high hopes for. In comparison to the previous Combiner Wars version, which, let's be honest, was severely compromised, this guy already is a huge improvement, as we whack up an image of how he did appear in the original G1 cartoon. Visually from the front, he looks solid. The entire upper torso, including the head sculpt, are super cartoon accurate, even down to the intakes, which could definitely double as a pair of inbuilt shoulder cannons. I also think that the proportions of this version are again so much better in comparison to the Combiner Wars version, and as we spin him around to the back compared to the look from the cartoon, I think they've done a pretty decent job, even down to the propeller blades. In a way, with him releasing on his own without any of the other Combaticons, it's really allowed him to stand on his own without being compared against any of his teammates, and I've got to say that by himself he is pretty solid, although not completely perfect. There are really two main issues that I have, the first being these pretty big gaps on the inside of the legs. Honestly, these are such an eyesore, and considering that this guy will not transform into an actual limb of Bruticus and will instead become armor that will attach onto a skeleton, I really do wish they could have found a slightly better way in designing these, as from certain angles he does begin to look a little cheap. The second issue would be the arm kibble, but surprisingly, unlike the legs, this is actually workable. You can either take the panels and compress them inwards to kind of make them look more like a part of the arm, or completely remove them, which definitely creates for a much cleaner look. But overall, are these issues big enough to detract from this guy? Honestly, I would say no. He is still easily one of my favourite looking deluxes to be released into the line, and that may or may not have to do with him transforming into a Decepticon helicopter that does vaguely remind me of a certain character that did appear in a Michael Bay movie. Flying through his accessories, he includes one traditional handheld blaster, 2 wrist-mounted weapons, and then finally the propeller blades. The 3 blasters can be attached throughout the robot mode to match up with what we did see from the original cartoon, and are even blast effect compatible. The 2 wrist-mounted weapons in particular are pretty cool, as these can help in stopping the kibble from just kind of collapsing in on itself, making the arms much more enjoyable to mess with. Easily the best he includes though would have to be the arm blades. In addition to being back-mounted, these can also be attached onto the side of his arm to create not only a spinning shield, but also to slice and dice his way through some unfortunate Autobots. Diving into this guy's posability, again, a marked improvement in comparison to the previous version. So, the head is packing an incredible ball joint. This can look up, down, tilt side to side, and rotate left to right. The shoulders can kick forwards, backwards, as well as out to the side. The elbows can bend, and despite the arm kibble, the biceps can rotate. Although, unfortunately due to the way this guy transforms, there are no wrist joints. Although, despite the whole combining element, the waist can still spin, with the hips being able to kick forwards, backwards, and out to the side, completely uncompromised. The thighs can rotate, with the knees being able to bend to 90. Due to transformation, the foot can hinge backwards ever so slightly, and are even packing a pretty deadly ankle joint. But to really see the true power of Vortex, let's now put him through the pose test. Firing through some robot mode comparisons, we are going to be going in order from tallest to smallest, starting off with the Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime, and with the release of Vortex that now pretty much confirms a Commander class onslaught, and that, guys, is a figure which I am now so excited for. Here is how he compares against the Combiner Wars Vortex mold, and I think I can safely say that when it comes down to G1 accuracy, the brand new Age of the Primes version most definitely reigns supreme. Next up is Aerial Bot Air Raid, Slingshot, and I would love love to know that between the two Age of the Prime combiners, which is the one you guys are the most excited for. Then finally, the 86 movie, Bumblebee. Landing in for this guy's transformation, despite being an entirely new mold, I was surprised to see quite a few similarities to Slingshot. So first up, take the head and spin this all the way around until the back now faces the front. We can then take a hold of this panel stored behind the back of Vortex's head and slide this over the top of his faceplate. You'll then take a hold of the air filters and slide these upwards, with again the same applying for the second side. We can now take the arm kibble, slide this down until it does snap into place. And again, the same mostly applies for the second side, with only one minor difference, that being that you'll want to take a hold of the back rotor, fully extend it, and then take a hold of the stabilizer and fully straighten it out. With that completed, we can now spin down to the legs and combine these here directly down the middle. We can then spin around to the back, take this panel and slide it here to the side. Now I have decided to remove the propeller blade, mainly just to make the transformation slightly easier, but it can stay fixed into place throughout the entire process. Much like Slingshot, you'll now take a hold of the shins and pop these open, and much like something from Combiner Wars, the knees will disconnect, allowing the thighs to slide all the way down. You'll then take the top half and connect it into place, with this section sliding back into its original position. We can then take the shins and lock these into place. The shoulders will now hinge down and will rotate backwards, with again the same applying for the second side. We can now take them at the shoulder and hinge them upwards, until eventually they do combine directly down the middle. The back and front part of the foot will collapse inwards, with the final step being to deploy this optional landing gear, and that is the transformation now fully complete. Here is Vortex now fully transformed into his helicopter mode, and as we whack up an image of how he did appear in the original G1 cartoon, yet again he is incredibly close. If I'm not mistaken, all of the Combaticons were based off militant vehicles, so it's pretty cool to see how he appears to take a lot of inspiration from a sea sprite. From the side, this guy's also incredibly clean. All of the windows have been fully decked out in paint, and again, to match up with his look in the cartoon, you can fully weaponize him up with all of his accessories. Now, when it comes down to his combine mode, as mentioned previously, unlike the Combiner Wars version, this guy will attach onto the skeleton of Bruticus, much like we've recently seen from Superion, which funnily enough, this guy's also compatible with, leading me to believe is so that in the future, they can totally repaint and retool him into the newest aerial bot recruit, Alpha Bravo. Flying through some vehicle mode size comparisons, up first is the Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime, the Combiner Wars Vortex mold, and I will say that when in helicopter mode, this one still looked pretty decent. Aerial Bot, Air Raid, Slingshot, then finally 86 movie, Bumblebee. So, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers Age of the Primes Vortex. To be completely honest, this is a figure that I have been so incredibly excited to review. My first combiner ever was the Fall of Cybertron Bruticus, and ever since then, Vortex has always been one of my favourite looking out of the Combaticons. He looks great in both robot and helicopter mode, with my only issues really just being the gappy legs and kibbly arms, which, considering that this guy does not have to transform into a third combined form, are really issues that I would have liked to have seen ironed out. But besides that, the figure is mostly an incredibly solid first entry, and definitely does make me excited for the rest of the Combaticon team. I would love to know what you guys think of Vortex. Be sure to sound off below and let me know. As always, I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, I'll see you then. Transform and roll out!